Guys, on today's episode, I've been very excited to talk to this guy for a while. His name is Eric Wind, and he runs a company called Wind Vintage. Eric is one of the preeminent vintage watch experts in the country. He's been profiled on HODINKEE, profiled in GQ and Esquire. He has an unbelievable knowledge base when it comes to vintage and collectible watches, and we have a wide-ranging discussion about how he got into the business and what the market looks like for vintage right now, what's hot, what's less hot. I bring out a few pieces from my own collection to go over. In a recent episode with the Notice Watches guys, we were talking about affordable watches that can really help anyone get into collecting. While we're talking on this episode a little more about high-end pieces, there is some surprisingly affordable and collectible stuff over at windvintage.com. Follow Eric Wind on Instagram, and I hope you enjoy this chat with Eric Wind of Wind Vintage on the Smoking Tire Podcast. We've been at it for a while.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We started podcasting in 2010.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming down.
Matt.
What brings you to town?
I was in town for a wedding yesterday.
Oh, okay. So you're not like moving units.
That always happens as well.
Do you come? You come with a heavy roll?
I have a few things, but I try not to get too crazy with
right.
it. Just
when you travel with multiple watches, is it stuff that you're planning to wear, or is it stuff you think you might be able to sell?
both. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It depends on the scenario and events and everything.
Is everything for sale all the time?
Not everything. There's always some personal pieces that would be hard to part with. Yeah,
I understand.
How about you?
There are a few things I would sell, but most of my stuff is I've bought for personal reasons, and unlike cars, it's like unless you need the money, it's not like it's taking up space.
Yeah.
It's not like, with rare exception, it's not like it needs a huge amount of service.
Exactly.
The insurance is fairly cheap.
Yes.
So unless you, that's just me. I don't know. You probably have like 200 watches or something.
Yeah, but no, even 200 you could still fit in a couple safe deposit boxes.
Yeah.
So it's not that difficult.
Yeah, and so unless someone really wanted something, I probably wouldn't. When I was developing my taste, I traded a few things here and there where stuff, if I didn't wear it for like a year, then it could go.
Yes.
By
the way, this is really good.
Isn't this nice?
I've never had Rowan Street.
So, did you ever hear about a guy named Carl Ruiz? He was a chef. He was a Food Network chef. He passed away 4 years ago, and he helped me develop my taste in watches. And his profession was cooking, but he was a real street smart guy and really knew a ton about watches. And he had a YouTube channel on top of, he was on Guys Grocery Games, he was on all these Food Network shows. But he also had this kind of silly YouTube channel where he would review fast food restaurants.
Oh, that's awesome.
I rewatch them all the time. I'm so glad that they're there.
That's sweet.
And he had a little dumb video he did with a guy named Brian Lau, who was a friend of ours, who was a big watch collector. There was Pappy Van Winkle for $50.
Yeah.
And it was 3 bourbons they were tasting that tasted an awful lot like Pappy for $50. And this was one of them.
That's amazing.
And it's called Rowan's Creek. And it's delightful.
Yeah, I love it.
And as soon as I had actually never watched that video before. And I was like, holy shit, I have a bottle of that in my fucking locker at the studio.
Amazing. Wow.
And as soon as I was like, you know what, I'm going to crack it today.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
Here's to Carl.
Cheers.
Carl and his watches.
Cheers,
a man
Carl.
of very practical watch taste.
Yeah.
So most of the folks that I know that are into watches got there through cars. But that doesn't seem to be your bag. You seem to be a pure watch.
Watches first, then cars secondary.
Are you into cars at all?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to Monterey in August for the first time. That was fun.
That's a spectacle.
Yeah, I've been to the Cavallino Ferrari show down the road from me in Palm Beach a few times. Getting into it's an expensive habit, as you know.
I mean, watches aren't much. Yeah. They're not much cheaper.
Of course. Yeah.
And I mean, there's to spend $400,000 or $500,000 on a car is insane.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, you could look at it and go, all right, well, I at least I see
car.
where the money
Yeah,
went.
exactly.
In a
The
lot of
watch.
cases, you spend that kind of cash on a watch, and people go, I'm sorry, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
are
true.
you kidding?
Yes. Yeah, per square centimeter space there.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if it's some gold and diamonds, there's only so many gold and
Yeah,
diamonds
exactly.
you can put on the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's
So
fun.
what was it that got you in? Because you're a young guy.
Yeah.
Aren't you, are you not even 40?
I'm under 40.
Yeah,
37.
so that's pretty young to be having profiles written about you as a watch dealer on HODINKEE and Esquire and stuff. So what's the story?
It started when I was in college, around the time HODINKEE started, which Ben Clymer started when he was at UBS. And I had received my grandfather's Hamilton before my senior year in college, which my grandmother gave him for their wedding in 1947.
Oh, wow.
That was my first mechanical watch.
So like 32 millimeters or something?
Yeah,
Just
30.
some tiny.
Yeah,
it was
30.
Tiny?
Yeah.
Wow, 30.
And
That's
that
crazy.
was like
My
the
wife
men's-
is 5'2" and wears a 34 millimeter
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
So it's like,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But that was the start for me learning about mechanical watches. And then I never anticipated I'd be doing it as a full-time profession, less than a decade later.
Yeah, and at a very high level. I mean, I can pull it up. Your Instagram is awesome. Oh, that's my Instagram. Hang on, let's click over to that. Eric M. Wind on Instagram. You've got all the timepieces that you're selling, and of course, windvintage.com, where you've got some major players. Lots of Rolex, lots of Patek, lots going on. All eras really. There's mostly old, but also some modern. So go check that shit out. But when did 1 turn into 2, turn into 10?
It was just slow, but it ramped up quickly as HODINKEE took off as well. And I was writing a weekly column called originally What's Selling Where, then it became Bring a Loop. And people would wait for that Friday column to come out and see what I was writing about that was available for sale online. And I think in 2014, we had 1 week where we had 10 watches for over $1 million, and they sold out by the end of the weekend.
Was that on HODINKEE or on your site?
It was on HODINKEE. They were all watches available for sale at different dealers or on eBay or things like that. So then I was recruited to go to Christie's as vice president, senior specialist of watches for the New York team. And I really enjoyed that. Then I realized I had all these people demanding my time, but I didn't have any time to give them because of the Christie's workload. So I decided to start Win Vintage about 6 years ago.
And were you, how do you even start collect? Because these things are really expensive. You could be, one watch could be a few $100,000, could be over $1 million.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do you amass a retail level collection of hundreds of watches that could be tens of or hundreds of thousands of dollars each?
You've got to start small. I mean, I was starting all the original watches when I was a collector were just a few $1,000s and less typically, and you just keep ramping it up as you become more comfortable. Part of cars and watches is you buy something, you get to know it a little bit, you sell it, buy something else. Like that is part of the experience of learning the ownership process, which is where I'm not there yet with cars. I would like to start doing that a little bit, although I understand you typically are losing when you
there's very
sell.
few, unless if you're an actual dealer, that's one thing. But if you're an individual,
and
there's almost no way to make money in cars. I mean, it's very hard.
In watches, you can as a collector if you buy right and know what you're buying. So even as a young guy just out of college, I'd buy something for $2 and sell it for $3 or that sort of stuff. Not like I was trying to be a dealer, but just saw opportunities and wanted to own it and then was ready to go to the next thing.
Were you passionate about a particular subgenre?
I originally started with Heuer and then Rolex.
Okay.
And Heuer, I liked the kind of chronographs, the automotive kind of aspect in the design, and then obviously Rolex is just classic. And the sport watches, Submariner, GMT, Daytona. Then it went on from there, and it's been the whole gamut. I think a lot of people on their collector journey start with sports watches, and they go to more formal, elegant watches with time-only pieces, kind of rectangular watches, other watches. So that's part of it, but I'm fortunate. I love the whole wide genre of watches.
I keep attempting to get to like a more formal watch, but then I don't ever wear any formal clothes. I live at the fucking beach, dude.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
For me, like formal is like this shirt and a Daytona.
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
Formal. Like there's no, it just doesn't exist.
You're not going to be wearing a Cartier anytime
No,
soon.
I just like, and it's I would like,
Yes.
I kind of wish it's not like I couldn't, because I could wear what the fuck I want, but it's just never, I've never been like, oh, that'll go with this outfit or something, or to this. I never have to be anywhere fancy.
Yeah, it's kind of, I live in Florida and it's similar. I mean, I wear vintage Rolex watches most days, partially because they're you can make them water resistant, even 70-year-old watches, and it's humid. You don't want the dials to get damaged, but I've got 3 kids under the age of 10, so if you're getting them out of the bath or doing whatever, it starts to downpour, you just want something that's water resistant.
That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I'm always, if I'm not working, I'm cooking a lot, so I'm washing my hands. My dream watch, I just said this to these guys the other day. My dream watch is it's basically a chef's watch. It's a regatta timer in a diver case.
Yeah.
It's like a reverse chronograph for
awesome.
Timing in the kitchen.
Yeah. For
and
what increment would you do?
I'd probably do like a 30-minute chronograph, because like
Yeah.
I'd say 30 minutes is like my most, 30 or 15 is like my most common kind of time. But if there was a way where you could like set it to do like 5, 10, 20, 30, like that
would be sick. Yeah.
Somebody fucking do this for me. Like, I have a collab with Notice watches, which I'm very proud of. But they were like, nobody will sell us a movement that does this.
Yeah,
like,
that's tricky.
Yeah. So
I've seen the 5-minute regatta countdown.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
all the really good regatta timers, except the one Hoyer, are quartz, unfortunately. And I'm just not that into it. I'm just not that into it. Yeah,
for sure.
I really like the re-release with the rowing blazers.
Thank you.
It's very dope.
Thank you.
If I had 10 to blow, I would have been on it. Let me get a photo of that, because it's really cool. Oops, I'm not used to this keyboard. Sorry.
Look up Bamford, maybe. There it is.
No, the good news about Google is you can get pretty close,
and
they'll figure out the rest. So this is really, really neat, and this is actually, I think, probably my favorite collab piece of the year. It's the Tag Heuer Carrera yacht timer collab with Bamford and Rowing Blazers.
Yes.
Very colorful, fun yacht timer.
Yeah.
I'm really into this one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. What was your level of involvement with this?
I was the co-designer with Jack Carlson. We designed it. George Bamford helped as well, kind of guide the process. So it's kind of a dream modern.
It's really dope. If one day I may have to get one on the flip if they ever come up, because I was not ready to drop $9,000.
I'll keep my eyes peeled for you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do a secondhand one, but like this is like a 3-way collab.
Yeah.
There's like a lot happening.
Yeah,
here.
there is a lot.
But it's a beautiful piece, and I'm really into it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a yacht timer, regatta timer is one of my favorite, and I'm actually on a yacht racing team now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But the thing is, you don't need the watch, because the boat has like a big clock on it,
wow.
and it's all GPS shit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you race?
It's a 45-foot sailboat, and it's like club racing.
That's amazing.
It's club level shit, but these guys take it really seriously.
That's fun, yeah.
And the boat is very beautiful,
That's
and
awesome.
it's pretty fast, and it's something I've wanted to do for a long time.
That's amazing.
So I'm
How
very
long
excited.
have you been doing it?
Like, I literally did one race at the end of last year and was like, sign me up for the whole season
That's
next year.
amazing.
So
That's
I don't want to like overstep in saying
Yeah.
I've done something I haven't.
Yeah.
But like, I am on the team, and races start again in April.
That's
So
great.
Very excited. Follow Spirit of California on Instagram. That's the boat.
Awesome.
So Hoyer and vintage Rolex, and then, but you also have stuff from all over. I mean, your Instagram's full of everything from old Seamasters to Volcains and Breitling.
I have a not so secret obsession with Volcain Crickets.
Is it the president thing?
It's not. It's that partially, but just the alarm, the complication took almost a decade to develop. I have one in my bag I can pull out that I just got.
Really?
Which is very cool. You'll like the. I'll grab
Yeah,
it in a second.
let's show and tell. It's okay. Yeah. For those who don't know, the Volcain Cricket is a watch that like nobody that isn't a super nerd has ever heard of, but for some reason, it has been like the choice of U.S. presidents, right, Eric? It's like
It has.
Like how many U.S. presidents have owned Volcain Crickets?
Almost everyone since Truman.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Why? What is it about
It was
this?
kind of the businessman's watch when it came out in the 40s.
I've never held one. I've never had one in my
This
hands.
is a super cool cricket
What the?
nautical.
This is a cricket?
Yeah, cricket nautical diver
This looks
watch.
like that Mido Ocean Star
Yeah,
reissue.
Same dial.
Wow, this is
manufacturer.
unbelievable. Let me see if I can hold this in front of the camera and make it look good. It has this unbelievably colorful. Is it a compression timer? A decompression timer?
Yeah. And
It's got a crazy thick top hat crystal.
Yeah, it was designed to go to 300 meters
wow.
in the 60s.
This is badass. I have
I-
never seen anything like this before.
It's a super rare model. I've only had one other like it.
What would something like that sell for?
Around 10.
I mean,
And it's
honestly,
got
that's
the
a lot
original
of
buff.
watch.
It is.
It's what
And-
Carl would call a lecturer's watch because you have to explain to everybody
That's
what
a
it
good-
is and how it
It's a
works.
good comment. So it's got,
And it's got the alarm clock in
Yeah.
it. So that's what a Volcain Cricket is, a mechanical alarm clock.
yeah, it's great.
My wife has the cheaper version of that, the Seiko Bellmatic.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
which
exactly.
has a higher
Does she-
pitched ring.
Does she use it?
No.
Yeah.
But but it's
That's
neat.
fun. Yeah, that's great.
She uses her iPhone as an alarm clock like everybody. Like every president since
Yeah,
Obama. You know,
exactly.
like- but I've only ever seen the Volcain Crickets that are
more
like
dressy,
a little more dressy.
and smaller.
Yeah, that's fucking
these
crazy.
are very rare. And
Why
very
aren't they?
Cool.
Were you gonna call them on how dope that is?
Yeah, I will.
That's very cool.
Yeah. It's amazing.
That's a game changer.
It is.
Yeah.
And also like the JLC Polaris watches, the deep sea alarms, very similar technology and just super cool.
Mechanical alarms are fun.
Yeah.
I just went to the Grand Seiko GS9 club.
Yeah,
and
how was
I actually
it?
spoke at it.
Yeah.
It was great. You know, Grand Seiko, they do it up. You know, they
amazing.
got great parties, great food, great people.
Kevin O'Leary was there.
I had dinner with Kevin. It was
great.
very interesting.
That's
he was
fun.
double wristing
Yeah.
as he does
Yeah.
with a blue dial Creedor that I've never seen before.
Oh, wow.
It was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And we had a really nice chat actually.
That's great. Was that your first time meeting him? Or?
Yeah, it was. And I very clearly he didn't really pay attention to me until we were on the panel together, and I had got some big laughs, and clearly it was like, oh, okay, you're at a certain level where
I
we
can talk to you
or
now.
now I can talk to you. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But they had the new the Creedor chiming watches,
Oh, wow.
which are they're big and they're hefty and they're loud when
Yeah.
they chime. It was
Jeez,
very cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have any Grand Seikos here?
I didn't bring any.
Yeah,
I brought a few watches that I think will inspire certain conversations, but I'm still more interested in
for
your
sure.
story before we get to them.
For sure.
So, like, at what point did you become like confident in your expertise and because in the beginning you're like, everyone's kind of faking it till they make it, right?
I think writing, and I encouraged other young people I've talked with along the way that are interested in watches, writing about watches makes you a lot better because watches, like cars, have a huge subset of OCD people. And if you start making mistakes, you're going to get 50 comments that like, dude, how can you not know that? This is the caliber, et cetera. So, that really helped me hone my craft and like not wanting to look foolish and just doing everything you can to fact check everything to the 9.
And watch reviews and shit, you know, it's because I read HODINKEE and actually, you know what I really like? I really like the sort of travel pieces. I like the more recent pieces where it's like someone does like watch spotting in a city. I think those are great.
Yep.
But a watch review, when someone can write 2,500 words on a watch.
It's a lot.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
you know? And I did this podcast with Cameron Weiss for a couple of years called Watch and Listen. We did 50 episodes. And after that, they were like, do you want to do another season? And I was like, I would need to be way more nerdy or way more snobby to continue this.
Yeah.
And
Cameron moved to Nashville.
he did,
Yeah,
yes.
that's great.
But it was good for his business and his
Yeah,
family,
that's
and
good.
he's happy down there. But I'm actually going to see him next week. But,
Oh, good.
But Yeah. So how do you love a watch and a movement and the art of it so much to be able to churn out 2,500 words on something where its function is 3 sticks moving around a dial, you know?
It's a lot. I specialized more in writing about the history of the watches, the design. I wasn't pumping out huge, long week on the wrist reviews, but it was more like, this is why it's important, this is why it's special. And that's where I really began to understand and appreciate condition with watches and originality. And the first Submariner I bought was a gilt dial sub on eBay, and as I owned it kind of for about a year, the lower right lug was bothering me because it was thinner than the rest of the lugs. And clearly, when it had been polished, it was just had been polished
A little
more.
toasted through.
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, this really drives me crazy whenever I look at the watch. And that's kind of where my bent towards unpolished and original condition kind of came from.
It's weird, like, there's there's sort of this like mindset. It's cars and watches of like, you got to use it, you got to use it, you got to use it. And like Seinfeld said, and it was reposted all over Instagram, like, he who dies with the lowest mileage Porsche loses.
Yeah.
Which is totally right. Like,
Yeah.
like there's a you should be punished for not enjoying this beautiful, expensive, engineered thing.
Yep.
That if you do enjoy it, it gives you so much use. And yet, it's proven over and over at auctions or at places like your business, the less you use it, the more. But what I like to say in terms of cars is that miles are actually cheap. So unpolished, great condition, yeah, it's worth more. But is it worth that much more than if you had bought it new and just used it and kept it running well?
For sure.
What do you think?
Guys, we got to take a little break from the content right now for today's sponsors, Factor. You know about Factor. I talk about Factor all the time. One of the hardest parts of my day is planning meals. Maybe you feel the same way. The holiday season is coming. It's super busy, and you're looking for nutritious, flavorful meals to fuel you on those jam-packed days. For me, it's about a morning shoot, driving back, and having to get back to work, not making time for those meals, but maybe you can relate in one way or another. That's why I love Factor. You can forget about meal prepping, forget about shopping, forget about fast food, and get Factor's fresh, never frozen meals delivered directly to your door. They're ready in just 2 minutes. All you have to do is heat and enjoy. You can treat yourself to high-quality, delicious meals over the holidays. Choose from 35 or more crafted meals every week that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, whether it's calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus, or more wholesome options. This December, you can get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Just choose those meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered directly to your door. They're ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. I love their pastas. I love their meats. The vegetables are good. Even when you microwave them, the vegetables still retain some of that crunch. They don't get super mushy. It's a great, quick, healthy option that can keep you eating on schedule without getting those hunger pangs or making bad decisions. Head over to factormeals.com/tire50 and use code TIRE50 to get 50% off. I know it can be a little confusing, but you got to use that TIRE50 at factormeals.com/tire50 to get 50% off. We're also brought to you today by Game Time. You guys know about Game Time. You've heard me talk about it a whole bunch. It is the best place to get stress-free tickets for anything that needs tickets. Your next big event? Don't worry, get Game Time. It's the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All you've got to do is head to that Game Time app, right? Search for the events you want, and then you can use the seat map and the view from your seat to see how those seats are going to be. The price has got a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection, so you can get those tickets worry-free. And they've got tickets right up to the start of the event, even up to an hour after the event starts. It's the best place to find last-minute seats. There's exclusive flash deals. There's sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, etc. There's zone deals where you pick the section and Game Time can pick the seats for big-time savings if you're flexible on that and you're factoring in your price versus picking the exact chair in the stadium. And that Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code SMOKINGTIRE, SMOKINGTIRE, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, just create an account and redeem code SMOKINGTIRE, SMOKINGTIRE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And now back to the show.
It depends.
Are miles cheap on a watch?
It depends on the watch. You know, part of why I don't love modern watches as much is that there's just a ton of them out there, and that is whoever uses it the least kind of wins. Like if you take a modern Patek Philippe 5970, there's a huge premium if you have a new old stock one from 2008 versus a lightly worn one. It's, I don't know, maybe 25% more.
Yeah.
But it's not, there's still hundreds out there, so if not thousands. So that's what I like about vintage watches. It's maybe 1 or 2 out of 100 are unpolished. And even if it is and is worn, you could wear it for years and not affect the value. You're not going to wear like a super complicated Patek Philippe 1518 or 2499 every day. That's $1 million plus probably. It's not really meant for that. Daily driving a Bugatti from the 30s, you wouldn't do that. So,
there's one guy in LA who's got a Persang, which is it's a part for part replica of a 30s Bugatti.
Oh, wow.
And they're about 500 grand rather than 10 million.
Yeah.
But this dude mobs. He drives it hard as fuck. Shout out to him. He's up in the canyons. He's got this long beard. It's like blowing in the wind.
That's great.
And it's not an original, but it ain't cheap either.
Yeah.
And the dude's hammering it. And shout out to him.
Yeah.
And there are some folks who do, who are at a financial level where they can do that
for sure
kind of stuff. My Pepsi Rolex, which is a current gen, a Jubilee bracelet, I got it as a gift for my wedding from my dad.
That's sweet.
If you look, it is beat the fuck up.
That's awesome.
It's probably top 10% most beat up ones. And I don't do it intentionally. I just wear it without thought.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm never going to sell it. It's a wedding gift. It's a lifer.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
great.
whatever.
It's more fun that way.
And it is more fun that way, I think.
Yeah.
But so if somebody wants to, they don't know where to start. Okay, I'm going to start a collection. I know I'm into this, but like, you know what they always say to me is they want to get something where they're not going to lose money. I want to be able to enjoy it, maybe not every day, but I want to get into something where I'm not going to lose money. Where do you point people?
I think Rolex is a great place to start. It's the price point isn't crazy. You might be looking at under $20,000 for a sport watch like a Sub, GMT, etc. And generally, they're pretty stable. It's kind of like the S&P 500. It's not going to double in 1 year, but it's not going to
I think a good place
50%.
to start is like the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. I have a watch there on
like
the
this,
lower right.
Like this guy. Here, let's go to your, it's on your site right now.
That's a great watch. It's $9,900. Just was serviced by Rolex, and thankfully they didn't polish it.
Late 90s, a little bit of English on it, a little bit of patina, but pretty good.
And it's less expensive than a modern Rolex out
the
door. Sub.
No date. This is the watch my father wears. This watch every day.
That's
Bought
awesome.
it new in 1990.
Oh, that's
Has worn
awesome.
it every day since.
That's
it's
great.
only had one service.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of these
Yeah.
things. The movements are.
So when he dies and leaves it to me, I'm calling you.
Good,
no, I'm
good.
kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
When he dies and leaves it to me,
Yeah.
it's going in my fucking safe,
that's
and it's
good.
and you'll never see
You'll
it
wear
again.
it a lot.
I will. Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
My dad is one of those. You know what? He taught me this, and I agree with him. Which is, and especially with a watch like that, a no-date Sub, you can wear it every day, for every occasion, with every outfit,
Yep.
and you don't really need more than that.
Yeah, it's true.
My first nice watch was a Kermit,
Yeah, that's great.
and I wore it for 10 years every day.
Do you still have it?
Oh, fuck
great.
yeah! And
Yeah.
and I wore it because I film cars. I'm out in the desert. I got a fade. I have one of the only. I'll send you a photo.
Yeah.
I have one of the only ghosted bezel Kermits
That's
you'll ever
sick.
see.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
It's awesome.
That's
it's
sweet.
so much lighter than the other ones
That's
you'll see,
amazing.
especially the new in box ones.
That's great. Did you buy it new?
Yeah, I got it brand new.
great.
It was like $5,400 or something.
great, yeah.
And for like 10 years, I didn't know anything about watches other than Rolex was a quality item. Green was a little different from black.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why would I ever need another one?
Yeah, yeah.
And
for
other
sure.
people had watches, and I was just like,
Yeah.
and then I learned, someone poked me down the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and it was, well, this bezel means this, and this.
Yeah,
this,
the flat four. And
yeah,
all these
and then it
things.
was like, there's other, and then it got way out of hand.
Yeah.
But for like forever, and my dad is the same way. Is like, you just need this one. Like, this is a good one.
Yeah,
it's
that's
great
sweet.
for everything. So I agree that like late '90s, early 2000s sub or GMT
Yeah.
is the way in
Yeah, it's great.
because it's flat money at worst.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about like oddball collections? Like if someone goes, okay, I now we've got our steel sports watch. Where do you go from there?
I mean, going back to the cricket, I started with crickets pretty early on because they were literally $200-$300 on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone up, but you're still talking under $2,000 for most of them. And I mean, Hoyer's got expensive with time. I love Hoyer's. That market's kind of a little bit slow. Some people have called it dead. Other people call it sleeping. I think it will take some, I don't know, just a resurgence and kind of collector gatherings and things to help inspire that market. Speedmasters as well are just obviously a great watch, historic watch with the Apollo missions and astronauts. But
The thing about Speedies, though, the nerds are so fucking nerdy with those.
they are.
The Dewey Decimal reference numbers, I hate them.
Yeah.
And people just lose their shit over the smallest little things.
Yes.
I have like a part spin Speedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a case and a dial that's like a pre-moon, and it's got service hands, and it's a 66 case and dial, service hands, and a service movement from 68.
Oh, wow.
So from far away, it looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
But if you show it to a Speedy nerd, they're like, ugh, what a piece of junk.
Yeah.
But it's $6,000, not 60.
Yeah.
And so I actually like it because I can wear it.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about fucking up vintage watches? They are a little more fragile than the new stuff.
I haven't had any issues.
Really?
And I think the important thing is just whether the watch is water resistant or not, and making sure you don't submerge it if it's not. So
If people buy a vintage watch and they're unsure about that, what steps should they take?
most watchmakers have a pressure tester. So there's dry and wet testers. Obviously, if it's wet, you want to remove the dial and movement and hands and everything, and then check the case. But if it's a dry tester, it's essentially like a little tweezers, and it pumps air into the cap's chamber. And if the crystal moves out, you know that water or air can get in the case.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you 3 bars, 4 bars, 5 bars, which is equivalent to meters, essentially like 50 meters or whatever.
I got a friend who dives with a 5513.
Yeah,
like
you can,
proper
for sure.
proper dives.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's boss.
Yeah,
it's a fucking boss move if you're doing
it's
that.
great. Yeah.
You're really rolling. I mean, that's if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's like taking a Ferrari 275 GTB to a track day.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're a pretty heavy hitter if you're doing that,
the
because
only problem,
no one's forcing you to do it.
Exactly. Also, the lume probably isn't that bright underwater, but it doesn't matter.
I think he's doing
doesn't care.
I think he's doing it to prove a point.
Exactly.
At this point.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So in the last, I want to say it's since COVID, but it was on its way before that. Really, with the Paul Newman Daytona was the ski jump that really, and now we are regularly seeing million plus, which was unheard of.
Yeah, it's true.
And yes, inflation and whatever, but I suspect that it's Instagram that's done this, because my friend Carl always said on Instagram, a house, a car, and a watch are all the same size.
Yeah, it's true.
And so do you think that's true as well?
Instagram's been huge for watches the
Yeah.
last decade. I think it's definitely one of the top 3 reasons why the watch market's taken off. And there's so many more people that are aware of watches because of Instagram or music videos.
Thieves.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate that shit. I
Yeah.
fucking hate the fear mongering over getting your watch jacked.
Yeah.
I mean, not you. You should use common sense.
Yeah, for sure.
You should use common sense when you're out and about. But I can't tell you how many places I go where someone's like, you can't wear a watch here. You can't wear a watch here. You're gonna get fucked.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not. They're showing the same 4 clips over and fucking over,
Yeah,
dude.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
this crazy fear mongering.
It hurts the watch market big time in the big cities.
Yeah.
It's really hurt the watch market.
And if you're pull your fucking sleeves down if you care that much. Like, just don't be that flashy.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so where do you see opportunity?
I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I don't love this whole kind of Daniel Roth and these sorts of brands like Roger Dubuis, 90s, and Frank Muller and stuff. Tony Trena, who's a good friend of mine and on the Significant Watches podcast with me, loves that stuff. And
Yeah.
we disagree. We agree to disagree about whether that stuff's cool or not. It's essentially a lot of it's harkening back to Patek Philippe's from the 30s, 40s, 50s, some of the dials and things like that. And my comment is just go buy the original if you can afford it versus like a 90s recreation. But
Well, what about interesting stuff from the 90s? Like, for instance, I have an Icopod Hemipod.
I love those.
And I
Yeah.
almost brought it today. I
Oh,
didn't
that's
bring
great.
it,
Yeah,
but like, I love the story of that watch with Mark Newson,
Yes.
and the fact that the rubber strap became the Apple Watch strap,
Yes.
and it's sort of the
And it's so
anti-Apple Watch.
Yes.
Which I think that has all the room and all the upside in the world.
110%.
But what about other underappreciated 90s stuff? The Breitlings and
I think Breitling.
you think that's on
90
that's way in?
90s Breitling is sort of a vibe. I've seen some guys with unusual 90s ones
Mm-hmm.
and unusual bracelets. You know, even like the titanium Tag Heuers from the night. That's such a look.
Yeah.
And the distinctive bezels. The Formula One plastic watches have taken off a lot.
I got a Tag F1 as a bar mitzvah present
oh,
in
that's
'94.
awesome. You still have it?
I don't. I have
yeah.
no idea what happened to it. I wore it in my teenage years.
And stuff.
It was
yeah.
quartz. It
sick.
had the plastic bezel.
Yeah, it's
it was probably like a 34 or something.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it
that's
wasn't big, but I remember it was a big deal. It was like
Yeah.
it was a big gift when I got it.
Was it from your parents or who gave it to you?
Guys, we got to take one more break from the action for Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? You should know by now. I talk about it every week. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros, sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 through 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, right? Prize Picks projects the stats. You choose 2 to 6 players, and then you pick more or less. That's it. With the basketball seasons here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3 points made and receptions. If you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Prize Picks even does a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second half, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So go to prizepicks.com/tire and use code TIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/tire and use code TIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. And lastly, one of my favorite sponsors ever, Straight Up Meat. Omaha Steaks, 'tis the season to send that meat, baby. Buy it for yourself, buy it for someone else, buy it for someone you love, buy it for someone who's going to cook it for you. I love Omaha Steaks. It's delicious, it's fresh, you thaw it and you cook it, you're good to go. The quality, convenience, everything you need to deliver an unforgettable holiday gift experience this holiday season. Man, let Omaha Steaks take the guesswork out of gifting. Shop these carefully curated gift packages guaranteed to make spirits bright all winter long. We've got a huge sale going on at Omaha Steaks. So go to omahasteaks.com, right? Use promo code TIRE. Get extra $30 off your purchase and take advantage of 50% off site-wide. Right? When you use promo code TIRE, an additional 30% off. Send tender, juicy, butcher-cut filet mignons, mouth-watering burgers, gourmet jumbo franks, even easy to prepare complete meals, even desserts, chickens, you name it. If it's meat or tasty, Omaha Steaks has got it. They're ready to ship your order right away, so shop early and beat out the shipping rush. Go to omahasteaks.com, use promo code TIRE, take advantage of that 50% off site-wide and an extra $30 off. Omaha Steaks, it's a gift from the heart and a gift that will be remembered every unforgettable bite. Order with complete confidence today, knowing you're ordering the very best. A minimum order may be required, but go to omahasteaks.com, get 50% off site-wide, plus promo code TIRE at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. And now, back to the show.
Was it from your parents, or who gave it to you?
I don't think it was from my parents.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty typical bar mitzvah watch at the
sweet.
time.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
What was it? Brightly colored, or was it?
No, it was just blue, navy,
Oh, nice.
navy blue.
Yeah, that's cool.
This bracelet was bar mitzvah as well.
Oh, that's great.
11/12/94.
Oh, that's
I've been
great.
wearing it for almost 30 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Shout out to OG Tiffany.
Yeah, that's great.
But
That's
I feel like 90s has room to grow for sure, right?
Definitely.
And like, I mean, and
like Porsche design, the originals have taken off
Yeah.
big time. The Orfinas, I get hit up all the time. Hey, do you have any of these? Like, no, if I did, they'd be gone in 2 seconds, sort of thing. And we're talking
talking about the Top Gun joint.
Top Guns and all of that stuff. I think the IWC Porsche design watches are super cool, like the ones with the compasses.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking under $8,000. Titanium. Sometimes they have the green case, olive green case, black cases, etc.
Sorry, go on. I apologize.
Yeah, but I think all that kind of 80s titanium brushed looking is a vibe.
What are your thoughts on Seiko?
I love Seiko. It was one of my early passions. We've been fortunate to design a few rowing blazers, Seiko collaborations.
Yeah, those are really cool. What is your? Are you a partner in rowing blazers?
I'm a small investor
Oh,
and
okay,
on the
cool.
board of advisors, and then I oversee the watch collaborations.
I like the rowing blazers Seiko collabs. They're fun and colorful.
Yeah.
I didn't buy one. I work with a couple Seiko modders individually.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
I've probably got about 10 custom Seikos.
That's
But I do them all myself.
Yeah, it's fun.
I've got one. Shout out to Shadow Watchmaker. Shout out to N Horology Lab. Do you know him?
I've seen them, yeah.
His shit he made me is so sick.
That's
I have a
awesome.
Tahitian black pearl dial with
Oh,
a
wow.
shark secondhand. It's fucking awesome.
That's crazy.
And
I love the Seiko mod community. It's
I mean,
fun.
it's so great. It's the Mustang and Camaro of watches,
Yeah,
where you
it's-
can start with a $300 or $400 base. They go on sale on Amazon all the fucking time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can have infinite options for creativity.
Yep.
You can do like I have one that's fake aged. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like you'd never do that to a fucking expensive watch, but to a
Yeah.
$400 Seiko, fucking T-stain that dial,
Yeah,
bitch. Like
yeah.
get on it. Like,
yeah, and you can do the interesting bracelets from Uncle Straps.
yeah, I got
all
the
kinds
Strap
of
Code
stuff.
Jubilee
Yeah,
on there.
Strap
It
Code.
looks great.
Yep.
I got a million bracelets to change it out.
Yeah,
Like
it's fun.
they're so fun.
Yeah, and that's a great quality watch. And at the end of the day, the movements run really well.
Well, that's sort of okay. So part of the reason I don't like the Moon Swatch,
Yeah,
okay, it's not about I'm not gatekeeping. I
Yeah.
promise I am not gatekeeping. More than half my collection is watches that are $1,000 or less.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not about that. I'm not being snobby. My problem with the Moon Swatch is you're fundamentally buying plastic junk.
yeah,
It's a throwaway watch. Whereas for the $300 or $400 that it takes you to get into a Moon Swatch, you can get a Seiko or an Orient or
Yeah.
a Hamilton that will literally last you you inherited fucking one.
yeah, for sure, and it'll last forever.
What are your thoughts on the Swatch Omega and Blancpain collabs?
I thought it was I agree with your point about it not lasting. Like you can get so many cool Seiko 5 sports watches on Amazon for $200 or $300. They're way better watches,
Yeah.
way cooler, with a real steel case, etc.
Bioceramic, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fancy ass word for plastic.
But exactly. And they've got apparently just factories and factories just pumping them out 24/7 in Switzerland. But I think it's a good thing in terms of getting people excited about watches and kind
Sure.
of bringing that sneakerhead mentality to watches a little bit. There were so many millions of people excited about the launch of that watch last year. Obviously, the Blancpain wasn't as exciting. I didn't love the designs as much.
Yeah.
And I worry they're going to do a bunch more, like they're talking about doing Breguet and Hamilton.
Oh, they're
and
going to
the whole-
squeeze
they're
this
gonna-
fucking
I know.
orange, dude.
Then every
They're
year.
going to squeeze it until there ain't no juice left in this, dude.
And then the final press release will come out and it'll be on like 2 or 3 blogs and that's
Right.
it of the next collaboration.
Yeah.
And everyone will be sick of
You
it.
know, my father worked at Tiffany. He was the chairman of the board at Tiffany.
Wow.
He sold that company to LVMH.
Wow.
And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but I asked him a couple weeks ago, I was like, what do you think about all these Tiffany? I was like, LVMH went hard. You know, it's like they got the Jay-Z thing going on.
Yeah.
They're putting the blue on everything. And he was like, they're making their money. He's like, that they're going pretty hard at it.
Yeah.
And that may run out quickly. And before you know it, that color ain't cool anymore.
Yeah.
And if they get everything out of that brand in 4 years and all of a sudden it's worth it, that's a brand that took 50 years to build.
It's true.
And built all this value. And he was only chairman of the board for about 3 years. And he's gone now. He has nothing to, he's alive, but he has nothing to.
Was he
to
there
gain.
when you got the bracelet?
No.
okay.
This
Why
was
don't I
just a gift.
Yeah,
He
that's
he was there the last 3 years of ownership,
That's
and he has he got the very last Tiffany 5711 with the navy dial.
Oh, that's
The very last regular production
That's
one
amazing.
delivered. That was his retirement gift to
Oh,
himself.
wow.
He got Kelly Yock to allocate it to him.
That's great.
Which is an unbelievable. Now I'm friends with Kelly, which is
Yeah.
like an unbelievable
circle.
like circular story.
amazing.
And he's actually too much of a pussy to wear it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
in the safe. He
Yeah.
won't wear it. And I'm like, can you please wear this? And he's like, it's for you. And I go,
Oh, that's
well, can I have it now then?
Yeah, exactly.
and he goes, no. And I go, well, then wear it. Like, what the
Yeah,
fuck? Like,
yeah, that's
don't let it sit there.
That's amazing.
But he was saying that it's a very risky move that they're doing, putting that blue on everything they've got.
yeah.
And
I mean, they've kind of followed the similar model with Louis Vuitton, which
Right.
they maximalized,
Right.
if you will, and it's been okay for them. I would say successful.
I agree, but they're making plastic
Yeah.
suitcases. So
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
whatever, bro.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not good.
yeah, for sure.
So what is surprising to you? What in the watch world right now? What are people asking you for? Where you're like, wow, people are asking me for this. Anything? Or is it all predictable?
It's all pretty predictable. I mean, like in the wake of Top Gun, there were all these people wanting the Orfina Porsche design watches. Still, a lot of people want Daytonas if they come up, particularly 6263s with a black bezel. Subs are kind of quiet right now, unfortunately. GMTs are pretty strong. If you get a great GMT, it goes quickly. Explorers are strong, much stronger than 5 years ago.
I'm pro Explorer.
Yeah.
I love the Explorer.
Yeah.
Explorer 2. I like Explorer
I love
2.
Explorer 2.
Explorer 1 is a lovely watch. Doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Explorer 2 is my jam.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
The originals, Polars, have come down a touch but are still strong, the white dials.
Yeah.
I don't love the kind of the 80s ones with the cream dials as much.
Oh, yeah. We see those on Instagram a lot, the cream
yeah,
dial. Let me see if
yeah.
I can get a picture of the Explorer 2 with a cream dial. They're interesting,
Yeah.
right?
It reminds me of my grandmother's kitchen.
They're interesting, though. What's a good example? This is a pretty good example, right? Lemon
Yeah,
dial.
yeah.
Just we're talking about photos.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'll get a good photo of it.
Yeah,
Folks, I'm doing my best. We got no Zach today. He's up flying an eVTOL in San Francisco, and I'm trying to do everything at once, so be patient. So how do we end up with this lemon cream dial? How did it happen?
I think that in the 80s, that was the original color versus this whole idea that they
Oh, really? It wasn't always just white?
In the 80s, that 16550, I think, was more of that color originally versus everyone thinking everything's changed. Which
Compared
sometimes the
to
collectors
today where we
community
have
thinks
this white
it's
ski
a bright
right here.
white. Exactly, yeah. So,
Now, I don't like the white.
yeah, it's an
I like
interesting-
the black because to me, and Carl fucked me up with this, he said the white, the hour plots look like Snoopy.
Oh,
and I was
yeah.
like, shit, I can't unsee that.
But maybe that's a good thing if you're a Snoopy fan.
Yeah, no, it is. It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. You know what I did? And this is a real guy. Here's how you know someone's got a fucking problem. When he got me into the Explorer 2s, I bought a white and a black.
Oh, wow.
And I go, okay, we're going to give it a year. Whichever one I wear more, I keep.
Yeah.
The other one is out.
That's great.
And so I kept the black.
Yeah, that's great. And it's kind of, the black is kind of more versatile. Plus, I like the contrast of a black dial with the steel bezel.
I do too.
Same for
steel
Daytonas.
bezel is just great.
I actually really like the early Daytona's black dial with the steel bezel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a nice contrast.
I agree.
So yeah, I think it doesn't do as much for me color wise, and these are like $30K, and a Polar might be.
This one they're asking $40.
Yeah,
I don't know what
exactly.
this website is, but
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one of those like white dial GMTs? Apparently they're super rare,
Yeah,
right?
super rare. I only know of one that seems to be legit. And there's a few subs that have white dials from the 50s as well, Explorers as well.
One of the
Super rare.
only watches I ever bought. You know, this brings me to a question or a topic. Error dials.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny where an error watch, it's like an error baseball card.
Yeah. Or a coin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let's go through some of the fun errors. You've got the spider dials, which is my favorite personally.
Yeah.
So what is the premium on a spider dial?
There's not much of one. It might be 10%. I have one if you go on my
Do you?
Instagram,
Okay,
I'll
let's
show
go
you.
to your, is it recent?
Yeah, it's down. Just go down.
My first ever.
Right there. In
This
the
one in the
middle.
middle? This guy?
No, right below that.
Okay, hang on. My first ever vintage Rolex.
See right
Oh, yeah. This is perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Was a spider dial GMT.
Oh, you have
I
one?
loved the idea of it.
Yeah.
I had it, and the first day I wore it, I scratched the crystal.
Oh,
And I went, you know what? I don't think this is for me.
Yeah,
And I traded it for a modern Batman,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
it turns out, hindsight, was the wrong decision. So how did these spider dials happen?
These were some of the early dials with this type of lacquer on it and the white gold hour markers that are basically the hour markers were glued on with white gold surrounding. So if you look.
Oh, I commented on this. Look at the first comment.
That's good. I
this
didn't even
post.
realize. Very
Damn, that's
appropriate.
fire.
I didn't even realize.
So
I
funny.
think that the lacquer they just hadn't really figured out. And then if you look where all the cracks kind of emanate from, it's from the hour markers themselves that like emanates out from the hour markers.
I think these are some of the, and look, and in the right
That's how
angle,
that you can't tell
it's gone.
anything. Yeah.
So these are, I think, collectible wise, if you want to get into a vintage Rolex, a spider dial,
It was cool.
and GMT,
And this was 9,500. It was not expensive.
huge money.
Yeah.
And for an unbelievable piece, and it's like a secret when you move it across the light.
Yeah.
It's like a secret that reveals itself.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
so fucking cool. Yeah, there we go. I absolutely love those. And then you've got your like long E and stuff
and
like
all
that.
these little nuances.
I've never been able to see the long E. People have told me about the long E, and I look at it and I go, I don't even see it. It's literally the E in Rolex is longer.
That's kind of like that, actually. It's just got very long, lines off of the E. And
But like, do you advise someone who is interested in collecting to buy a watch where some very small, practically unnoticeable thing increases the value substantially?
I think that's somewhat of a gamble because some of these things take off and some don't.
Yeah.
But the condition thing is the real game changer. You can have one watch like a 50s small crown go for $8,000 with all authentic parts but service replacements, and the same watch go for $500,000 if it's all original and essentially unworn.
So you're saying you shouldn't service your watch?
Maybe not. Just be careful. I mean, just don't have it polished. Don't have external parts replaced. And I think, it's just focus on the condition. There's a lot more knowledge now than a decade ago about these things, but there's also a lot more kind of efforts to make things look unpolished and laser welding. And
Well,
polishing.
that's interesting. Let's talk about that for a minute because there's a guy I follow on Instagram that goes by Perez Scope,
Yeah, for sure.
who is like there's Perez Scope and then there's Baller Busters, which are my two favorite Instagram accounts.
That's awesome.
Other than the Qualified Captain.
Yeah.
If you got to follow those three.
Yeah.
And your Instagram is complete.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about Perez Scope's talking about watches that are provably, or I don't want to say provably, demonstrably inauthentic and verified as authentic in some very high-profile auctions.
Correct.
And then sold for huge money.
Yeah, millions sometimes.
Is it safe to invest in vintage watches purchased at auction?
You have to be very careful, and you have to have good people in your corner.
Yeah.
The reality is, I think, similar to cars, these are interchangeable parts. It's very easy to kind of optimize things, swap things around. It's an object of industry, not art. So, there's a famous case of this Omega Speedmaster recently, which the museum bought. The watch had been offered around before, kind of a year before the auction. It was $60,000. Very beautiful dial, but replaced movement, incorrect, replaced bezel, and replaced hands. So essentially you're buying a case and a nice dial.
Yeah.
And someone did that, and then they got all the parts correct old hands, correct bezel, seemingly. And I don't know if it was authentic or not, but they made it suddenly look very attractive, and it goes for over 3.2 million.
Well,
Swiss francs.
there's a parallel with cars there, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you had bought an old Ferrari or whatever,
Yep.
and you found the correct engine and the correct gearbox, and you put it back together and you brought it back, but wasn't it presented as if it was not that? It was
course.
presented as if it was
Amazing, one of the most important Speedmasters.
right, not as if it was like when you do a lap of a racetrack, right? There's your lap time. And then if you had done a bunch of laps, there's your potential time.
Yeah.
Where they take your best possible sector times and add those together.
Yeah.
And so you go, I did a 132, but if you take every best sector time I did, it's like a 124.
Yeah.
But you never actually did a 124.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful fiction, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what that watch was. And it's now a huge scandal because supposedly people in the Omega Museum were involved in kind of putting it together and then telling Omega board of directors they needed to buy it and all this stuff.
To get rid of it?
And
Or to...
No, maybe because the allegation is that they were profiting on the back end when Omega bought it and that they ran it up. I mean, going into the auction, it seemed like the watch was going to sell for like $200,000 to $300,000.
Right.
Everyone was calling me.
If that was the case, if it had sold for $300,000, would that have been? But and would that have been a good buy?
I don't
Is a watch that's assembled from those best
not
of
without
parts?
accurate disclosure, which there wasn't. But the community would have just let it go. But it went for $3.2 million, and it was put together, and the Omega Museum bought it, and then everyone for the next year was like, "Who bought this? What the heck's going on?"
Right.
Like, that day, probably 20 people were posting their tropical 2915s on Instagram saying, if anyone wants to pay me $1 million, I'll sell it, sort of thing. But it was kind of hubris. It was too much. And then it led to the current issues for many of those that are involved.
Speaking of tropical dials, condition originality, but then a tropical dial is a dial where black has faded to brown or orange, and you get some amazing. Do you have any good tropical dials on your Instagram or on your website?
I don't know about recently.
Let me just. I'm going to pull up a competing website.
Yeah.
And because it's one I know of.
Yep.
And they specialize in tropical dials. Let's see if I can find one. It's basically where you got a good fade going.
Yep.
Right? And black, and even the website with the tropical dials doesn't have.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just Google image search.
Just like tropical Rolex, maybe.
We'll find it.
Yeah.
Folks, I want you to bear with
one.
me because I am trying to do 7 things at once.
There's
Here's a good one right here, like this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's pull that up. So you get a good fade going. So originality is important, condition is important, and yet tropical dials seem to add value, which is potentially at odds with that.
It's an interesting phenomenon for sure. People still want they want perfection, whether it's real or not. So some people want a tropical dial, everything else original, unpolished, etc. Usually tropical dials happened on certain runs of dials, like a 1969 Red Submariner.
Because of the type of paint they used or whatever?
Like Singer made a lot of the Rolex dials, and whatever black paint they used in that year would fade to brown with kind of UV and heat exposure, it seems. We see that with Hoyers as well, and certain Speedmasters as well. 1969 was a year where a lot of black dials went brown, these matte black dials. But sometimes that's a gilt dial where it's glossy and the printing is in gold and it has lacquer on top of the dial. And sometimes those go brown as well, and it's hard to predict which ones will turn brown or not. It's not.
Is it from sun exposure or is it just from
heat.
age?
Typically sun and heat. Yeah, is my theory. And people bake dials though now. They'll put them in the oven and have all kinds of things happen.
Well, that's back on what we were just talking about. You can fake this stuff.
Yeah.
Now. They have ways to fake.
And you
do
can
we have a
take
photo of a ghost bezel? I think we.
That's kind of
so here, right here.
Yeah.
So this one is an amazing example, and I don't know if it's real or not, but
Yeah.
but this is a tropical dial that looks like fucking lava.
Yeah, exactly.
And a ghost bezel is when a black or dark colored bezel fades to a sort of a gray. And I think a ghost bezel is gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
I happen to think a ghost bezel is amazing.
For
This
sure.
one we're looking at where it looks silver, and this fucking watch rocks. This is a HODINKEE article, so let's assume it's real.
Yeah.
But
and sometimes, by the way, these gray bezels have been put in Clorox bleach.
right,
That helps
but they
kinda
can.
age
That's
them.
the thing. You can make them.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, on a Seiko, shout out to Shadow Watchmaker, he made me a fake ghost bezel.
That's
like,
great.
but it's a fucking Seiko. Who gives a shit? It's not.
Yeah.
I'm not passing it off as some expensive thing.
Yeah.
And a Rolex, different story. I went to Barrett Jackson. The car auctions.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about Barrett Jackson is not the car auctions. It's the fucking sideshow.
Yeah.
You ever been out to Scottsdale?
No.
Your next car adventure You should go to Barrett Jackson, Scotch.
Yeah.
Partially classy, partially trashy, but there's a lot to see.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's the sideshow is like, I don't want to insult them by calling it a flea market, but it's a very high-end flea market.
Yeah.
You can buy cowboy boots and pocket knives and hot tubs and jet boats and massage chairs and fucking, I mean, and on and on and on.
That's crazy.
And there was a place that there was a vintage watch dealer.
Yeah.
And the vintage watch dealer was selling fake ghost bezels alongside the vintage watches.
Oh, that's so
undermining his own shit. But like, he was like, yeah, I make this. I make this, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, it's kind of crazy,
It's
right?
insane. Yeah.
I want to play show and tell, but we also have a lot of questions from the fans. You were actually quite popular among our fans. We got questions from the Patreon. But before I do, and I realize you're on both sides of this. Thoughts on hype pieces?
I mean, the values are coming down a lot.
Right.
I love the Nautilus. It's a watch that I would say is in my top 10 favorite kind of models, designs. But the Nautilus means a very different thing in 2023 than 2018 when very few people knew what it was. So
right.
It's kind of jumped the shark with things like the Tiffany Nautilus, etc. So it's not really something I aspire to own as much or wear.
I like a Royal Oak over a Nautilus. Actually,
yeah.
If I'm talking about sitting on my wrist,
I say there's two types of people in this world.
I prefer a Royal
Oak, and
I do prefer the Royal Oak.
Yeah. So I say there's two types of people in the world: Royal Oak people and Nautilus people.
Yeah.
But I love the '80s Royal Oak perpetual calendars with silver dials and the steel case. Just that's my favorite Royal Oak.
I saw a mother of pearl dial Royal Oak, and I was like, "Fuck!"
Yeah, it's crazy with the perpetual calendar.
That's the fucking. I'm obsessed with Tahitian black pearl.
Oh,
I just love it. It's my favorite dial material.
That's sick,
And I saw this watch. I was like, it was. It might have been a Tony K watch.
Yeah.
It was
That's
one of
awesome.
those crazy shits. Yeah,
That's crazy.
I had a Royal Oak. I sold it, possibly stupidly.
Yeah.
But when I wore it, I loved how it looked, but it felt like I was wearing a disco ball.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Which model was it?
It was a gray dial jumbo, three-hander.
Yep.
And I probably shouldn't have sold it based on how I bought it.
Yeah. It's all right.
But
It's a lot.
I'll get another one at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm a Royal Oak guy versus a Nautilus guy.
Yeah.
But what about the hype? What about hype and I straight up, I love the Rowing Blazers Bamford Carrera. Straight up. Love it. Even if take all the branding off it, just give me a Carrera in that color. I love it.
Yeah.
But what about like hype collab pieces? Are you how do you feel about those?
I mean, there's a lot of collabs the last kind of 3 years. It used to be
It's
more
the thing now.
Well, it used to be more unusual. Now it's like a collab every day.
Yeah.
So, at some point it gets to be too much and you kind of ask, can't the brands come out with something cool on their own?
Right.
Without having to rely on external designers all the time. But it's a good creative, outlet and synergy there between brands, each bringing their own kind of audience and ideas to the plate. But I think we're getting too many collabs in general.
Yeah, I think if there is a collab, it needs to be able to stand on its own if you remove the branding from
I
the
agree.
watch.
Yeah, I agree.
And if it looks like a great watch regardless, then it's all right. But a lot of times you go, well, if it didn't have this, it would just be like the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I like the regatta timer so much, because if it was just the colors with nothing else on
You
it.
would still see
and in
it,
fact, all the branding is on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
It's
no
minimal.
there's no shoutiness on the front. It's just great color.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
great.
why I love it.
Yeah, that's sweet.
All right. So I brought a few watches. I brought 4 of my own watches, and I brought them because they represent genre of watches that I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah.
So the one I'm wearing, this is a Ralph Lauren World Timer.
Oh, wow.
My dad was the president of Ralph Lauren from 2000 to 2015.
Wow.
And Ralph Lauren was very serious about making watches. In fact, he should have done fucking collab pieces.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been
He
great.
would have been more successful. He could have
sure.
run the game.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So this world timer has the
White gold.
JLC world timer movement. It's a very underappreciated watch.
Yep.
What you and nobody else will notice about this watch is that it's cased in white gold.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They never sold them in white gold.
Really? Wow.
They made 5. They gave them to the board of directors.
Wow.
The only ones released to the public were in steel.
Wow.
So there is no reference number. They've never been sold. They've never been resold.
That's amazing.
So that was a gift from Ralph to my dad. I changed the strap.
Yeah,
It had an
yeah,
ugly-ass alligator strap on
yeah.
it. It has an Icelandic reindeer strap
That is
on
fun.
it now. And I don't wear it very often, but I think it's a very, I mean, it's a special because it's of the whole story.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So-
stuff's very unappreciated. Like, I've seen the safaris go as low as $900. They're
Right.
sick watches.
So that was
similar
my
case.
question is these Ralph Lauren watches, which get shit on regularly
I know.
on HODINKEE,
Yeah.
is there value there?
I would buy a safari for $900. A friend of mine bought one for $900, and then he tried to sell it to me for $1,800. And I was like, Cameron, don't do that, Cameron Rothstein.
What about the ones with the wood bezels? The
Those
driving
I
watches.
think. I mean, what I liked is he brought an different kind of design ethos to watches. No one in their right mind would use a wood bezel in watches ever, since like the last 300 years. But he was like, oh, this reminds me of my Bugatti, and
Let me
that's
hold it
sick.
up to the camera if I can. You can't. It's not. Sorry. It's. I don't like Roman numerals. I wish
Yeah.
it didn't have Roman numerals. I don't like Roman numerals in any watch. But
Yeah.
the story is so good.
it's cool.
And it's such an interesting piece. I tried to learn about it, and
Yeah.
that's when I found out that it doesn't exist.
That's crazy.
It is a non-existent piece, and I think that's very fun and interesting. And I do think that some of the Ralph Lauren watches have some watch nerdery about them that is not
Yeah.
appreciated by the general public.
Yeah, definitely.
So I brought 3 other watches. This is the Weiss 42 millimeter standard issue field watch, movement
great.
developed by Cameron Weiss, with a one-of-one Bugatti French Racing blue dial,
Love it.
just for me. So what do you think about micro brands, which are very popular right now? I think that Cameron is more than a micro brand because he's developed and manufactured his own movement, and I really respect that, and I love them as a person.
Yeah, for sure.
Cameron he's not non-binary. I mean Cameron and his family. But so what do you think about micro brands, and then what do you think about someone like Cameron who's manufacturing his own movement in America?
It's great for Cameron. I think micro brands, I have a whole ton of micro brand watches and appreciate them. There's also the aspect of I hardly wear them. So I've got a bin of micro brand watches, and I've had to kind of cut myself off of because you see something and it might be 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever, and you just keep buying it, but you're going to wear it maybe once every other year or something like that. I think I like the communities they're building, the ownership communities, but it can be a little bit like cotton candy where you get a momentary high and then you kind of leaves your stomach not feeling well.
Because you can get a new watch and you
get
get
a
that high
high,
of getting the new watch.
Yep.
And they look good.
Yep.
And they work well.
Yes.
But it's not for some reason they never become a go-to.
They don't. And what we tried to do with the Seiko Rowing Blazers watches was we didn't want to sell to someone necessarily that had 20 watches, although we sold to that crew. What I was most excited about those were a lot of the buyers said it was their first mechanical watch, and that's their go-to the next 2 to 3 years.
Sure.
As their
That's what I thought
young
about too with
professional.
my Notice collab. It's expensive first watch at $1,200,
Yep.
and I wanted to go, okay, if this is the person who normally wears a Rolex,
Yep.
I want this to be their either their beater or their travel watch.
Yes, yeah.
And if it's someone who's never had a watch, I want it to be a
their
step above.
aspirational,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I feel
That's
you.
what Dave Pertnoy was trying to do with brick
Oh
watches.
boy, but that was terrible.
Unbelievable.
Though. That didn't go well at all.
No. That was someone who didn't understand the watch community at all. Just
Yeah.
trying to come in and do
Just
something.
straight garbage.
Yeah.
No,
but,
it's not
but
good.
yeah, that's my only issue with the micro brands. Like, hopefully it's something that for whatever reason it's good enough that you will wear it regularly, not just that you get a momentary high for a week and then it just goes in the box and isn't worn again.
That is the problem.
That's
and
the
and that's
threshold.
actually the reason I went to the Notice guys had an event last weekend in LA with 15 micro brands.
Oh, that's great.
And I went around and I looked at all these watches and I was like, a bunch of these look great, you know, and they were all under $1,000. Everyone was, and I was like, I almost bought something.
Yeah.
But then I like held myself off for like 10 minutes and I
Yeah.
went, you know what? If I bought this, it would be a once a year wear and
For
I
sure.
don't need it.
Yeah, for sure.
So how does how does someone who works in a micro brand, or is it, you know, how do they move out of that, you think?
It's a tough kind of journey to climb. We've
Yeah.
seen all these brands fail that were Kickstarter brands the last 10, 15 years. Other brands just kind of scraping along. You know, I think you've got to have your design language down and not just be an homage, but you also
Right.
have to have the methods of distribution and get it out there.
Right. But you need to have your own voice, right?
Yeah,
You
and
need
I
to-
think
it's-
like Brew Watches, Jonathan's a friend of mine. When he came out with his company and was telling me about it, he was calling it coffee-inspired watches. I was like, I wish you well, son. I'm not sure how that's going to go. Like,
no,
the
and those
cases-
watches are nice.
Yes,
They make a nice watch.
And he's
yeah.
had his kind of design ethos, and it's taken off, and he's winning awards, and like he's got his design vision, and that's like for me one of the most successful micro brands because they're continuously coming out with interesting new models. He started with quartz, so it was worked automatic, and obviously the price point's gone up and has brand loyalty. People actually wear them,
Yeah.
you know, frequently.
I like
own
the
them.
style of those watches. They're
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
They're
it's
cool.
fun.
It turns out the Icopod was in the
Yes,
case.
good.
So we've got
I
the
love this
Icopod
one.
Hemipod,
That's sick.
which is one of my favorite watches. I think it's extremely undervalued. You get into one of these for 5 Gs.
Incredible.
Designed by Mark Newson in the 1990s. There's a few different colors. You can get them in gold.
Yep.
And mine has the centipede bracelet also.
That's
and then
sick.
I got
Yeah,
the
I love
rubber
that.
bracelet.
That's sick.
And Mark Newson also designed the Apple Watch. And he's an
Yeah.
unbelievable industrial designer. He's so talented. And the Icopod.
Have you seen the Mark Newson Ford that had an iPod
Yeah.
clock?
Oh, my friend owns it.
Oh, that's
My
awesome.
friend
Yeah,
Philip
yeah.
owns it.
That's so cool.
And I just saw it. I posted about it on my Instagram. Let's see if we can go back. Let's go back to Pebble Beach.
Yeah, it was
because
in,
I
August.
went to the thing, and we're just gonna require some scrolling.
Yeah.
Give me some patience, people. But if we go back to Pebble Beach, we will be there at the Myers-Manx house in Pebble Beach,
Oh yeah.
where my friend Philip Seraphim, shout out to him. Here it is. Wait, hang on. Here, look at this. Let's pull it up. I will pull it up. Hang on. Sorry, it takes me a second. I'm doing several things at once. This is my friend's Rivian trailer. But look, back.
yes.
Here's the Ford Mark Newson concept.
So sick.
J. Mays Mark Newson collab
That's
concept. And Jay Mays is one of the designers that really got me into cars.
Wow.
And then that's the exterior. And here's the interior. And it has Icopod instruments,
It's so sick.
which I had never seen before.
Yeah. Only time I think.
And extreme fire. And if we, hang on. Oh boy. Sorry. Oh, I've messed this up. I have messed this up deeply. Hang on.
Yeah.
If I show the watch, you can then see it. I wear this watch a lot in my videos. The best one I think is the full monochrome silver.
Yeah, that's great too.
They're very tough to come by. Do you ever
Yeah.
sell these?
I do. I have 3 on my site right
Really?
now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
do they go for these days?
Could be 7, 8K.
Oh.
If they're full set, new old stock.
Sure.
But you could get a used one for 4 to 5K.
I've heard the downside of the Icopod is that they're tough to service because
Yeah.
they service from the front.
You actually have to break the stem when you pull out the crown.
Oh,
It's
no
like
way.
such a very specific design vision he had.
Fortunately, mine clock's okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's like one of those things you know.
But the thing about this bracelet, not only is this watch extremely cool, But if you can see the bracelet on the video, the rubber bracelet, this is not an Apple Watch bracelet.
Yeah.
This bracelet is from 1998, and this is 13 years before the Apple Watch was invented, and this is the exact same bracelet. And so what I love about this watch, the story of it is that it is the anti-Apple Watch.
It is, yeah.
Right?
And the company went out of business, then was reborn in the 2000s with new ownership, and then went out of business again. And the owner, apparently the second owner, was pretty upset with Mark, but then he sold the Mark apparently wanted to buy it after, and he refused to sell it to Mark at any price, is what I heard.
Oh, that's not
But he
cool.
sold the strap for something like $2 million, the IP. To
No
Apple.
way.
So he was able to recoup some of his investment.
He sold it to Apple.
Yeah, so the strap design.
Oh, I didn't know that story.
Yeah, that's how he got some money back on his investment.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
So now
that.
iPod exists again. They restarted. They did quartz. Now they're doing some automatic, but they don't have that strap because they don't have rights to it.
And there's some other iPods that are very cool. The
Yeah.
Megapod.
Yes,
and,
yeah. There's there's some crazy ones. The Horizons, which have
Right.
kind of golf ball dials.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
They're so cool. If I see one in the wild, I am stopping you and talking to you.
Yeah, me too. And I agree. They're just some of the coolest bang for the buck in
Yeah.
watches.
I think there's upside. I think long term there's a lot of upside to that
Yeah,
watch.
and I really like the ones with bracelet as well, as you mentioned.
The bracelet is really of the era.
It is.
I think it looks weird, but it is comfortable.
Yeah.
I like this. I like the rubber strap better.
Yeah.
But okay, last one of my watches. I'm going to show you this. Have you seen one of these? Look at the back.
That's crazy.
Have you had one of those before?
No.
So that is a Royal Navy clearance diver deep sea.
That's sick.
That's number 21. I also own number 22.
That's
As
great.
far as I know, I'm the only
Yeah.
person in the world that owns two of these.
That's crazy. How did you get them?
From the diver.
Oh, that's great.
Directly from the diver.
That's
The
awesome.
one diver bought two. Only
great.
one of them bought
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
And I have his dive log.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I have all kinds of crazy shit.
That's awesome.
And I love this watch as an investment piece
Yeah.
because I hate wearing it.
Yeah,
Because
it's
the
too
Deep
big.
Sea is the stupidest watch in the world.
Yes, yeah.
And it fits like shit. It's top heavy.
Yeah.
It does a thing that no human could ever possibly need a watch to
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
And that makes it the perfect investment watch
Yeah.
because although the diver wore it a few times, it lives in the case.
Yeah,
And I wear it one day a year.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other one's never been worn, the second one.
That's great.
So
Have you seen the Deep Sea Challenge in person?
I put one on and it was even dumber.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
this watch on the outside, it just looks like a regular Rolex Deep Sea. You have to look at the case back to tell the difference.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What is your favorite Rolex military collab if you have one? Or, forget Rolex,
yeah.
any brand military collab.
I mean, I love the original mill subs from the 70s, of course. That's like a grail watch for me. We're seeing, it's one of those watches, I feel like a great one's going to be $1 million soon. We just saw one sell for over 500 at Sotheby's in Geneva. It's similar. I have a similar feeling about Paul Newman's, that they're just going to get to that level for great examples soon.
Aren't Paul Newman's kind of easy to
They're around, but there's so many.
No. I was going to say
yeah.
to Frankenstein.
You can't. Yeah, you have to be careful that
Yeah.
you're buying the correct thing.
Right.
That it's not reloomed. All these sorts of condition issues. There's a lot of fake dials out there, et cetera. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things you just have to buy from a trusted place for sure, and trust who you're buying it from.
Right.
But the Turnek Rayville is a very obscure military
So
watch.
yeah, that's the one I just saw the story on. Hang on, I'll get it. It's how do Tournek? Is that right?
Tornek.
So tell me the story of this thing while I find a photo.
Yeah. So these were watches made by Blancpain.
Boy, sorry.
Yeah,
you
there
tell
it
the
is.
story.
There it is. You had it. Google showed it. Yeah, there it is. Just click
Okay.
that.
So tell me the story of this watch because it's very interesting.
So the U.S. military preferred buying U.S. goods, and still does. But back in the 60s, obviously the Swiss were beginning to kind of dominate the world of watches and sport watches. So this guy, I think his name was Alan Turnek, who was an American, basically contracted to create these watches about 1100 and applied for a contract for the military, the Navy and Marine Corps, I think, used them. And it's kind of an unusual watch because it used this loom that's called promethium, whereas pretty much everything else used tritium at the time. And it had a very short half-life. Tritium's half-life is about 25 years, but the Turnek promethium had a half-life of only 2.6 years, so it actually wasn't that useful in terms of being bright for very long. But they're just a very unusual watch. You know, these things people still find sometimes at a Goodwill or something like that, or in their dad's possessions, and don't realize it's something special because it doesn't say Rolex. So I've heard of these watches selling for under $100 in like a thrift shop, and then being worth over $100,000.
That's crazy.
And it's, you know, I love America. It's got U.S. on the dial, and you know, it's clearly for the.
And there's a lot of modern micro brands that are inspired by this. I mean,
For sure.
Unimatic obviously is
for
inspired by
Yeah,
this.
for sure. And a lot of other brands as
Yeah.
well. And someone just recently restarted the brand. They bought the trademark.
Oh yeah, well that was the first photo I pulled up
Yeah,
was
it's
the
the
was the
modern one.
reissue.
Yeah, exactly.
This is here's the reissue.
Yeah, yeah.
But the one that that's like, I don't know, what is it, a few $100 or something?
1,000 maybe.
1,000,
got
and then
a-
here's 300,000.
Yeah, 100,000. Yeah, it's
whatever.
crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, that's one of the very obscure military watches.
Right,
And,
right.
I just had posted on my Instagram feed a very clean Breitling for the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Let's take a look. Hang on. Let's
Right
find
at the
it.
top. The top left.
This guy.
Yep.
That's an Air Force watch?
Yeah.
Oh, how
So the
interesting. Hang on,
Canadian
let's find it.
Canadian Air Force liked these very clean white dials, and they had a few brands make them.
No
including-
branding at all on there.
Yeah, Omega.
How interesting.
Yeah, Omega, Breitling, Rodania.
So what is that going for?
That was 9,900.
Oh, that's not bad.
Great watch.
That's
was
not bad.
Spectacular condition.
That's very cool. You can you can get a lot for your money in
Yeah.
vintage. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
How many watches do you have in inventory at any given time?
About 200.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a bunch.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, good amount. And then do you help find things for clients if they ask you?
Yeah,
Keep an eye out for
ideally
this.
not like a $2,000 or $3,000 watch, but
Sure.
it's something that's worth, pursuing, or at least they tell me, and I keep my eyes open.
Well, that's cool.
So all the time.
Cool. We have a bunch of questions from the Patreon. I want to do a few of these if you don't mind. Of course, if you want to ask questions of our guests, watch the live stream. Not today because I don't have Zach. I'm sorry, but I hope you understand. We got a bunch of questions for Eric. But you said you have to catch a flight, by the way. When is your flight?
9:25.
Oh,
We got
okay.
plenty of time.
You're cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question. Zessi says, is there any corner of the vintage Rolex market where one can still find decent value? We already talked about the no-date subs from the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
Anywhere
if you
else?
go on my site, there's like 50s watches are very undervalued.
Wait, hang on.
Yeah, just sit back.
Let's go back here. We'll find something for you. Is it done by 50s? How do we do it?
Go down a touch.
Okay, hang on. Let's pull it up so that everyone can see. Is it done by age?
No, more by type. I
Okay.
kind of mix it up. There, actually, go up a touch. Right there on the right.
So this guy,
That's
this
just- yeah.
Rolex Oyster Precision.
That's unpolished. That came out of
$1,900,
Sweden.
dude.
Yeah, incredible. Unpolished, just serviced. I'm gonna lose money on it. Just a great watch. No one was clicking to buy.
How small is that?
That's actually 36.
Oh, okay,
it's
so not
nice.
even that small.
It's manual wind. It's a great watch.
Okay.
Something like that. You have a really beautiful top condition example.
Yeah, well, that's not that bad from 50s. That's
No,
okay.
Yeah.
All
There's
right,
a couple
cool.
Others.
Also says, what is the best way to get into a Daytona? Is there any value in Daytonas?
It's one of those kind of, I guess the equivalent's like a 911. It's not going to be cheap, but like there's varying levels of a 60s 9 or 70s 911 versus a 90s and all the specs. But I think with Daytonas, I feel there's good value with Zenith Daytonas.
Really?
Which are from 1988 through 2000. If you go back, I'll show you one. Not that I'm trying to promote my own stuff.
No,
too much,
but if you have you have examples like handy, then
it's,
for sure.
Yeah, go back.
Go back
it's like
up,
the fourth
up
or fifth. Yeah. Yeah, right there.
This
like
guy?
That's,
Black one?
Yep.
Let's go to that.
That's from 2000. It's unpolished.
From a reliability, dependability standpoint, is there any downside to a Zenith movement Daytona versus a Rolex movement Daytona?
I haven't seen any problems.
Do they operate the same?
Very, very similar.
Okay.
I think the Rolex movement has a little more power reserve, but I don't really care.
Yeah. People like you and I wear watches for 24 hours at a time. Maximum. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's great value there. It's not really much more expensive than a current production one that was just gets discontinued. That might be $26,000. That's a good place to.
All right. I think there's a dip in the just outgoing Daytona as well. I mean, right now you could buy the dip pretty handily.
Yeah, I've sold the white dials for $26,000 recently.
That's not bad. I mean, those things were $40,000 a year ago.
Yeah, 48.
Yeah.
One actually sold at Christie's Geneva last May for $77. It was used.
That's
ridiculous.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's just a drunk person.
Yeah,
that's not a real. That's not a real point of reference.
Exactly.
Sean says, "I loved your reference points segment. How do you go about sourcing the special watches for those videos? Do you keep records of where the plate pieces are and who has them? And at what point in time are there too many out in the world to even track?"
I mean, there's a lot in the world. Those videos were a lot of fun. It was mostly up in here. You just come up with a list of what, say, for the GMT Master, starting with the 6542, the original. Okay, what do we want to cover? Well, we need a gold one. We need a steel one. And how can we tell the story? Then contacting collectors, seeing if you can get the watches together. Each of those reference points had 30 watches in them. So it was a lot of money. You got to have the trust of people that you're going to take care of their watch. And we hired security for when we had the items, and it's a lot of shipping and logistics, but it's really helpful.
When Cameron and I would do episodes, Crown and Caliber was our sponsor before HODINKEE bought them.
Yep.
And they'd FedEx us like $200,000 in watches.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Sure. Yeah. And we were talking, like, for the Submariner reference points, at the time it was maybe $10 million
Holy shit.
on the table. So
insane.
we had 2 security guards for that one.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Dan Bemke says, I wear a Google Pixel watch for work. Who makes nice bands for those?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Just Google Amazon.
I don't know. Shout out to Erica's Originals.
Yes.
I love Erica's
She's
Originals.
sweet.
They
Yeah.
make great bands for
Really cool.
everything.
Yeah. By the way,
Okay.
one other shout out. I wanted to shout out John Allen Guzik.
Oh yeah,
mutual
who
friend of
introduced
ours.
us? Yes.
Just the best.
Yeah, he is
such
a
good
solid
man.
individual. Yeah.
Really sweet.
Hollywood Reporter quotes me regularly about cars.
Yeah.
Okay, Bad Gardener says, I have conceptions in my mind about the type of cars that come from each decade of the 20th century. If there is even such a thing, are there some big generations of watches? Is it based on advances in movement, technology, time, or cultural icons? Interesting question.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I think about the core of the vintage watch world, which is like 50s through 70s, 50s, I kind of think of the Rolex Submariner, which obviously the DNA stays pretty similar over the years. 60s, I kind of think of the Daytona, where you first get these contrasting registers.
Yeah. I think about chronographs. Chronographs
like,
in the
that
60s,
was really,
for
like,
sure.
The Zeniths came out, the Hoyers,
Yeah.
all those things, automatic chronographs. Then the 70s, I think of the
Funky
Royal Oak.
colors.
Well, and the Royal Oak and the Nautilus,
Right,
integrated bracelet watches. Many we know of, but tons we don't, like all these Omegas that had integrated bracelets, etc. So
There's some good DL Omegas.
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
the bullheads
Yes.
and the Mark IIs and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and that stuff.
Those are under the radar and they're
Big time.
dope.
Yeah,
Super dope. Prashant says, what do you think about men wearing truly small watches, 34 millimeter and down? Can you pull it off today?
I think you can.
If you're Tyler, the Creator.
Yeah. I think it depends on your personality and like what you're trying to achieve. And
anyone can pull anything off if you do it confidently.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about other? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I saw a guy at Josh Shapiro's workshop today in Torrance, and he was wearing like a 1920s ladies white gold watch on like a ribbon strap from the 20s. It looks sick on him.
Fucking rocket, dude.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think? Big Face is ever coming back? Or do you think Big Face is done?
I think it'll probably come back.
It's got to, right? Yeah. Everything comes back.
Yeah.
Hold on to your Big Face.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't sell now.
Yeah, don't sell the Panerai.
Yeah, keep them in the safe.
Yeah.
Panerai is an amazing watch because I love it on Instagram and I hate it on my wrist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Every time every time I see one on Instagram, I go, God damn, I fucking want that. And then I put one on and I go, nah, I don't want it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
James says, looking for a birth year watch, 1989. What would you recommend?
I'm not a big birth year guy. I think just focus on the best condition watch you like. When you start... People don't understand. It's not like a car where it's like, this is a 2016, 911 or whatever. Like, you've got to, the watches don't have a date typically. They sometimes sat for as long as 9 years in the store before being sold. I saw like a Milgauss. That was a 58 case production. And by the way, what people attribute...
That's the DeLorean of watches.
Yeah, exactly. The old Rolexes have the case production on the inside case back, but then when you get the chronometer papers for the few that still retain those, it was often not assembled and tested until a year later because it was a long lead time. And then by the time it hit the store, it might have been a year or two later. So the actual year of the watch is unclear. You could judge it on when the case is made. You could judge it on when it was sold in the store if you have the original papers or receipt, or you could have it the day that it passed chronometer testing. I think it's just
I agree. I understand the desire for a birth year watch.
Yep.
But in execution, it doesn't fucking matter, really.
Yeah, exactly. If you really want it, just go for that era. So, like, I had someone ask me for a 1992 Zenith Daytona today, but 92 is a really odd year. I think they didn't make many because they were having trouble getting the movements, is my understanding. So you really see 91. So just get a 91 and be done with it. You're going to spend the next 10 years looking for a 92.
How do you,
And the 91 probably was sold in 92 because they weren't flying off the shelves anyways.
Probably. Yeah. Right. So, like that's a DeLorean as well.
Yeah.
All the 82s are really 80, or all the 83s are really 82s as re-vind.
Yeah, exactly.
Tough Ode, we already talked about Speedmaster Mark II. Joe Curran said, old classmate of yours.
Yes.
Do you know a Joe Curran?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, well, he is a patron of ours.
Oh, that's great.
Has a Tudor Black Bay, black bezel ETA movement. Doesn't get enough wrist time. I wear my sub and Seiko Turtle more often. I'm thinking of letting it go and picking up something different, but I'm told these had a short run. It's a 79220N. I'm told these had a short run and I should hang on to it. Thoughts?
There's a strong group that really believe in the values of those because of the smiley and the fact it's the ETA movement and everything. I don't know what we're talking if it's going to go up $1,000. I can't see it doubling in value. Also because it's a rather large watch, and I think more people like the Black Bay 58 and some people the new Black Bay 54, which is much smaller. I find those original Tudor Black Bays just a little big for my taste. So, what you might hold it the next 3 years and it goes up $500, $800.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Opportunity cost.
Yeah, I would just, if you're ready to move on.
We don't see a hockey stick price curve in your future, Joe.
Yeah.
Aiden Squires, thoughts on the new Seiko GMT Alpinist? I'll get a photo of that. I saw the new Alpinist. It looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little small for me. What do you think? Let's go. It is you. Is this it?
No.
That's it. No?
I think it's below.
It's this guy right here.
Yeah.
Isn't it that guy?
Looks like it has GMT.
The new Seiko Alpinist, 39.5 millimeter. I like the bezel, steel bezel.
Yep.
I've always wanted to like these, and I've put them on. They've looked too small.
Yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't do a lot for me.
Nothing for you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. What? Oh shit! What is your go-to Seiko?
The rowing blazers. I like the rally diver I designed. It's 42 millimeters, but great watch.
Christian says, I have a friend that bought a new Cartier 5 years ago. It needs a $500 service. She's happy it lasted 5 years without a service. My friends and I told her that seems too soon to need a service. Do Cartiers require more maintenance? I know, well, I'm not even going to read your last sentence because it's wrong. His last sentence is, yeah, I am going to read it. I know some Rolex don't ever need service. That's not true at all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not true at all.
I wish.
What are your thoughts? Is 5 years? I think, by the way, $500 for a Cartier service is pretty much on market.
Yeah, it sounds fine.
That sounds normal.
Yeah, particularly if it's a daily wear watch. Like,
what's your advice for servicing?
Some people really try to push it so it's a regular interval, 2 or 3 years. I think the best thing someone can do is have a few watches and wear them in rotation. And you don't want a watch sitting necessarily too long without, being wound or worn. But if you're wearing a watch daily for years, it's going to need service sooner. So it's fine, And I'm not a big fan of automatic winding boxes.
Winders are no good. I don't fuck with winders.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a perpetual calendar watch and I got rid of it because of the automatic one. Because I was not physically able to set it myself.
Yeah.
It was an IWC perpetual, which is a very robust perpetual.
It is, yeah.
And it was a fucking cool watch.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the neatest thing ever.
Yep.
But I couldn't keep it in the safe because of the winder.
Yeah.
And I was like, so one of my most expensive watches has to be out?
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
Or you have to wind it every day, which people...
Every day.
I know,
No.
people do that stuff. But
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
What's the that's the end of our questions. What's the craziest? What's the watch collection that you've seen where you're like, oh, so you kidnap people for a living, huh?
There are some big collectors out there. Claude Sphere, who's in Lebanon, supposedly has 40,000 watches, 3,000 dates.
40,000 watch. That's just like a hoarder.
Yeah.
That
and we're not talking.
It's a hoarder with a maid and a safe.
We're not talking 40,000 Seikos either. Like
Yeah.
I said, at least 3,000 dates, all these other things. Like, it's a lot.
How much of that high-end market is made by guys like that, where it's like,
a lot, because they're in competition. You have dealers competing against collectors at the high end, going for the $1 million plus watches. And, it's been interesting to watch over the last decade. Certain people come and go in that world for various reasons. Sometimes people have run-ins with the law and go to jail. Sometimes other things happen. I imagine cars are similar, but
you hear about stuff like that.
There's a small group of market makers at the end of the day, and
so crazy. Like regular enthusiasts, even pretty well off ones, have a tough time competing with that.
Yeah, for sure. You can't.
You can't, like, these auction prices and stuff. Like, I can't. I'm pretty well off. I got a bunch of watches.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
But I can't go to an auction and bid against a guy who doesn't know what money is anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just, I'm not, and I feel like a lot of regular, even very well off regular people feel like that.
For sure.
What do we do?
Got to focus on the next thing.
Play at our own playground,
Yeah.
I guess, right?
Yeah. You just focus on what you can afford.
3 watches in your never sell collection, and we'll end the show there. What will you never sell?
I got a Rolex Explorer 2 1655 earlier this year, and it was a watch I've been looking for years, and I don't know. It just came at a really nice moment in life in May, and I don't know. I thought when I saw photos of the watch that it was polished, and you just presume like 99 out of 100 are polished. And when it arrived the next day, I was like, holy crap, what? And I would start looking at the watch and the condition, and suddenly it went from a watch I was going to resell to a watch I had to keep. So that's one. The Hamilton that I got from my
the
grandfather.
30 millimeter,
And there's a whole bunch in that list, but I think I bought a Speedmaster that I bought from the grandson of the original owner in Greece, and it's the CB case, which I love, for 1966 case production, where it's got what are called twisted flat lugs, where the top of the lugs is flat, and it's got this interesting bevel. The theory is
so
that...
I mean, some deeply nerdy
very
shit.
nerdy.
The Speedmaster shit
it is
so deeply
it's
nerdy.
so nerdy.
Yeah.
The theory is that the case producer for that watch, which was Central de Boits, it's got the CB on basically a tombstone in the inside case back, was not able to get a case from Huygens and Frere, so they had to base it on photos and drawings.
And they just
and
made
then
their
they
own
made
shit?
their own, and then they had this interesting bevel on the top. That's the lore, anyways. So
if you want to be into watches, by the way, this is the kind of shit we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like, nobody will ever notice this.
And it was just like such a nice the quality of the person I bought it from, Herasimos. He remains a friend. He didn't want to sell it necessarily, but it was his grandfather's watch, who was a Greek pilot, all original, never serviced. And he
so it's
wanted,
the story. It's all the story.
The bezel had faded to a beautiful gray, which is kind of unusual with Speedmasters, and the dial had kind of gone a bit gray. And he was using it to pay for dental school, so it was just a really nice transaction.
That's rad.
And great watch.
That's a great story. I'm just going to end on this one. I'm going to show you this because I allegedly ruined this watch.
Oh, wow.
I had a guy in England called the Dial Artist.
Yeah.
Shout out to him.
Yeah.
Paint my Rolex Explorer 2 with a photorealistic map of Bora Bora.
That's amazing.
It's like there's like a little world. There's like a little universe in the watch, and there's for a couple reasons. Bora Bora is my favorite place I've ever went to. I sailed around it with my brother-in-law John, who sadly passed away.
Oh, wow.
He came with us on this trip, and that was his last vacation.
Oh, wow.
And also, I wore the watch on that trip.
Oh, that's sweet.
And it's just such a unique topography of the barrier reefs that they have around it, and so this isn't my never sell.
Yeah.
I don't care if I wrecked the value. It's the original. I didn't get a second dial.
Yeah.
I just had him paint the fucking thing.
Yeah.
I don't care. And it makes me so happy when I wore it.
That's sweet.
When I wear it.
Yeah,
Excuse me, not past tense, present tense.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to like kind of end on this vibe because ultimately, like, you're a dealer. You're talking to people who want to make money. You want to make money. Originality is important. Condition's important. But at the end of the day, isn't this whole hobby about fun and connection? Because it's just a couple fucking sticks that move around a circle.
Yeah, for sure.
So isn't that more important?
Wear your watches. I have a client out here in LA. He brought his 3 children each into the Rolex boutique over the last few years when they hit a certain age, and let them pick out a Rolex that he was going to give them when they graduate college, as long as they are good people, he said. And
that's the lead time for ordering a Rolex.
Exactly.
They're 10 and like, I'd like this in 8 years.
Yeah. But he was able to have a good relationship with the retailer, and they sold them to him. Obviously, they knew they weren't going to get resold. So he asked each kid, do you want me to wear it in the meantime before you turn 21, graduate from college? And all 3 said yes. Like, I want memories of you wearing the watch.
Yeah. That's why I want my dad to wear that stupid Tiffany Patek.
Yeah, exactly. It's more meaningful.
Sits in the safe. I don't want a new watch. I want a worn watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for coming by, Eric. I really appreciate it.
You,
your Instagram is great. Your stuff on HODINKEE is great. The collabs are great, and you're obviously the fucking go-to right now. So
thank you so much.
I'm glad
man.
John introduced us.
Thank you,
we could
John.
spend some time together.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you for sharing that incredible Volcain Cricket.
Yeah, it's so fun.
I didn't even know that was a fucking thing.
It's insane.
That rules.
Very tempted to keep it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do this again soon. Thank you to
you,
our
Matt.
patrons for asking such great questions, and for the rest of y'all for listening to us yap about watches. We don't normally do it on the Smoking Tire podcast. We're normally a car show, but people have said, a little more watches in there, please. And so we're happy to oblige. Have a good night, y'all. Later.